Hey, I'm Jamie from Stonemaier Games, and today I am really looking forward to doing something that I do once per game at Stonemaier Games, and that is I open up the cabinet of secrets behind me and I look through all the things that we considered during the design, development, and pre-production stages of our games. And so this is for Stamp Swap, our newest game from designer Paul Salomon, illustrator Conner Gillette, published by Stonemaier Games. I worked a lot on this game, working with Paul, working with Conner on creating it, and our graphic designer, Christine, as well. And so today we're going to open up three different versions of the game, really, and discuss what's inside all these boxes. So the first box is actually, it's a pre-production copy box that has no texture on it. Usually we put linen texture on the boxes. So once I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, we forgot to mention linen in the contract. So we added that for the boxes that would follow. But this is a pre-production copy, so we can make a bunch of changes to this. But within this box, I actually have one of the late stage prototypes that Paul put together. So these were a lot of the stamps that he had in that game. So you have canceled stamps over here that don't have an inherent value. You have negative value stamps, which is something that we added during the development of the game. So there were some stamps that have positive values, a few that have negative values. You're trying to, as you use I cut, you choose methods, you're hopefully trying to get other players to take those negative values if you can entice them to do so. Some early versions of the rare stamps. Again, this is all prototype. This is not the final art and graphic design at all. But we have different colors and art on these tiles. And so that was a challenge that we knew we would face later. I'll show you what it ended up looking like as we're trying to convey colors in a way that is colorblind friendly and also different illustrations. And unlike the prototype, so Paul had a bunch of bird tiles, for example. They all have the same bird icon on them. But one of the cool things about stamps is that there's so many different stamps out there. So we wanted to have like an animal theme, but where every stamp would have a different animal on it. So I have a bunch of these tiles here, have some early prototype components of the first player token, and I think this was the round marker, things like that. I have a bunch of cards in here. We also have a magazine from, actually this must have come later because it's summer of 2024, which is when the game was in pre-production. So I must have gotten this in the mail for some reason, and this stamp-related magazine in the mail, and yeah, thought I'd put that here in the little box. Also have some prototype boards. Let's see what we have as we dig down deeper, because I think this was one of the pre-production copies, or maybe this was the pre-production copy that we play tested, I believe. So yeah, I do have some things here. One of the little things that I'll mention is on the tickets are pretty much all birthdays of people that are meaningful to Paul, family members, friends, things like that. So one of the things I noticed in this box, we have many of the cards from the game. Yeah, this is something that I believe there's a fairly subtle change as we go deeper in it, and you can kind of see it here, where this doesn't matter all that much in the game, but there are orange cards and there are red cards. And each game you'll have an orange card out and you'll have a red card out. Those colors are pretty similar. And you can kind of see here just how similar they are when they're next to each other. They do, of course, have icons on them. So all of the red cards are color-based and all the orange cards are, I believe, theme-based. So they have different icons to show. This is a theme card, this is a color card. That dual coding is important. But I think we may have tweaked that red to be a little bit more red in the final version. We'll see when we get to that box. There's only one of these cards each game, but you're randomizing the cards and picking one. We also found one of the big changes that we made after this pre-production copy playtest, as I did with my coworkers, was to make some of the wording on these cards clearer. We thought we had it clear going into this stage, but there were some that just weren't as clear as they needed to be for someone who hadn't played the game dozens of times. So we made a bunch of those clearer. Also deep down in here, oh yeah, we have a bunch of the tiles. Let's see if I can find some examples of this, because I remember one thing that we did change during this PPC playtest. Yeah, here's some of the bigger tiles, some of the square tiles. Here we go. And I don't know if I'll have any great examples in here, but actually here's one that exemplifies a lot. So actually, no, here's two things that I'll mention. One is, so one of the categories of stamps that is pretty common in the stamp world are space-themed stamps. And there's two things going on with this stamp that we ended up changing a little bit, because this stamp, importantly, it's a space theme stamp. And you can kind of tell that's a space theme stamp by looking at it. But the primary art on it isn't outer space. Outer space is kind of only maybe a third of this stamp, while the rest of it is probably looks like another planet, probably Mars. And there's a vehicle on it. One of the other categories of stamps is vehicles. And so this was one that was maybe a little confusing to players, like, is this a stamp tile? Is this a vehicle tile? Whereas a stamp like this, it's a little bit clear that we're talking about outer space here. Maybe a lot clearer that this is outer space. So there were a few space-related tiles that we went back and changed the actual art of after this pre-production copy playtest. The other thing we realized is that due to a miscommunication, all of the rare stamps in the game, here's one of the rare stamps, were supposed to be gold foil. And at the pre-production stage, the pre-production copy did not have the gold foil on it. And I looked back and I realized either I hadn't communicated it clearly enough to our graphic designer, or that note was overlooked. I can't remember exactly what happened. Or it was a note to the publisher or the manufacturer. Whatever it was, we got this pre-production copy. And I was like, where's the gold foil? And I went back and found why, whatever the reason was that it wasn't communicated properly. So later you will see we added the gold foil. This stamp did not have gold foil on it. So there are a few artistic changes that we made due to this pre-production copy playtest. I think there's something related to the board as well. If I can dig down in here and find the board. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, here's the board. Oh, the other thing that I meant to mention on that stamp, and I can show you examples on the back here. So originally, the canceled stamps had these big squiggly lines and often a actual stamp over it. Like this one has a little Easter egg of Euphoria mentioned on it. Big squiggly lines. But what we found is that that's a lot of information. As thematic as that looks, like an actual canceled stamp, it covers up a lot of the information that you need to actually play the game. So we took all this stuff and we reduced it down to an icon that means canceled stamp. You'll see it later as I go through some of the boxes. But for the back of the board, just so we could retain that original feel, we kept it the same. So the back of the board has all the original look of the canceled stamps on the back of the board here. As for the front of the board, I'm trying to think of what we changed here. We'll see if there are any changes that I'll notice later. I don't think there was a lot that we changed. We did add, no, I don't know if we added that. Oh, we did add something here. So throughout the game of Stamp Swap, at the end of each of 3 rounds, you are choosing one of the 4 goals to score. And you only get to score that goal once per game. There are 4 goals here, so there's one goal that you won't score at all. And we had like kind of one place to put the tickets that you use to score. Each player has 3 tickets that they're using. But they were kind of stacking up. You couldn't see once they started stacking up in this spot, you couldn't see if someone else had already scored, or you couldn't see who else had scored. Not that that really mattered, but you couldn't even see if you had previously scored this category. And actually in an I Cut You Choose game, it does matter who has already scored these categories. You can see, okay, no one has scored, or the blue player hasn't scored canceled stamps yet, so they're more valuable to that blue player. So I'll feature that in the way that I do the I Cut You Choose grouping. So that actually is pretty important information to have. Anyway, we needed a better way to show that the tickets should be staggered so that you have that public information. So that is something that you'll see in a future version of the board that is a little bit better. I think that's all the big stuff from the pre-production copy of the game and the early prototype that I'll mention here. So let me close up this box, and then we're going to go to the next version of the game that I received. This is kind of a pre-production part 2. So I can feel the box. But this actually might be an MPC, the mass production copy. But this box does have the right texture on it at least. And so it's feeling better. I like that texture. Yeah, actually, I pulled this out. This is something that changed. So there wasn't an insert in the original pre-production copy. We were just thinking you'd have bags of tiles, you dump them out on the table. But I don't know. It was just my hunch that I thought an insert would be a little bit cleaner, a little bit better for organization. I thought it just would look better. So I don't always put plastic inserts in games. I try not to put more plastic than we need. I don't want to put in games. But by putting this in, I could also remove 4 bags from the game, potentially even 5 bags from the game. So we put this insert in the game. There is something that will change about this insert. I don't know if you can notice it already, but it's an insert with a lid that has all these tiles in here, and different tiles of different shapes and sizes go in different categories. Let's see if we did print anything on here. Yeah, so there is So you can see on the back of this tile, there's a circle, and there's a circle. I don't know if there's a circle in the imprint here. That's helpful, but also this is the tile size that clearly fits into this space. So you don't really even necessarily need that guide. Let's see if we had the right gold foil stamps at this stage of the process. I don't know if we had them yet. Oh yeah, here we go. So remember that yellow stamp that I showed you before? Now they're gold foil. You can see that gold foil. So these rare stamps really end up feeling special as the result of this gold foil. I really, really like that. So there's one thing that we changed on here though. So in this insert, so there are these little stamps called forever stamps. And this is actually something, they're pretty small because they fit on one cell of your player mat. They're meant to be small. The art's going to be small. They're all the same. This is the infinity icon showing kind of forever. In the US, we have these forever stamps that you can buy that they hold their value forever. You can always put one of these on an envelope and it is good, even if you bought the stamp 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But these are so small, and you can see that this is a really deep container for only a few small stamps. So I asked Panda to raise up the floor of this container, which you'll see in the final version of the insert, so it's a lot closer to the top. Like, look how deep that well is for what's actually inside of it. So that is the insert. We added this insert, but still made a few changes to it. The cards, yeah, so I was talking about the red and the orange. You can actually, I think you could see it here. Here are those cards. The red is now more distinct to the orange. Again, they're dual coded. So with this icon. So the color of the card isn't really all that important. The dual coding is more important in this case. But it is nice for it to be a little bit more visually distinct than it was. I also mentioned that we made some fixes on these cards. Oh, actually, this is one thing that I forgot to mention before. So in the PPC playtest, there were times in the game where all of our tokens were on the score track. Each player, I believe, has, what, 2 tokens? 3 tokens? I think it's just 2 tokens. There's one token that's going around the track and one that is sitting on 50, 100, or 150. But if both your tokens were out there, you didn't really have a way of knowing what color you are, what color player you are. So we added these reference cards. We didn't have reference cards before. So we added reference cards that are bordered based on the different player colors. So you can always have this in front of you with your player color. And they're also reference guides. So they can tell you what the different themes are, what the different colors are. And on the back, there's a quick round summary that goes into more detail. This is also printed on the board, but not in so many words. So we gave each player a reference card. Really, I try to make this a default for all of our games, to give each player a player aid or a reference guide. No need to pass it around the table. Each player just has it in front of them for when they want it. And in this case, it serves that other purpose of having a color, your player color on it as well. Let's look at the board to see what changed in the board. I know some things changed about the rules, but I won't go into that here. But let's see what we changed. Yeah, okay, you can see it here. So the tickets, I mentioned how the tickets were previously stacked beneath the goals. Here, we stagger them. So you can clearly see in the graphic design here that you are meant to stagger the tickets here, and there's only 5 of each. It's a 1 to 5 player game, so each player can only have 1 on up to 3 of the goals. You can't ever score the same goal twice. So you put your ticket here, you can see other players' tickets, you can see who has scored what throughout the game. I think we put a little bit of iconology up here that the first player, or not iconology, but a little bit more text. The first player scoring 2 points if they have the first player token. You're choosing one contest. You're also scoring your exhibitor card every round, as noted here. And then we have the final show. I think that was on the previous board as well. Yeah, no other big changes about the board. That seemed to work pretty well. So that was the second version of the pre-production copy. And now let's finally get to the final copy. This is the real, actual copy of the game. I played with this recently myself. You can see the final top of the box. We made 23,000 copies in the first English print run of this game. I don't know if there's much in the way of components that really changed in this version. I guess the one thing that I can see is the insert. You can see that there's a much more shallow area for the forever stamps over here. Much easier to pick up, but still plenty of room for them to go in that area of the tray, area of the insert. I haven't shown the player mats, but I don't think much really changed about the player mats over time, but I'll pull one out to show you. So there are 5 player mats in the game because it's a 5-player game, and each player mat looks like this. So they aren't coded by player color because they have a different theme on them. So this is your exhibitor card that you'd be scoring each round. 1 point per animal stamp for this player mat that you have on your board. And then on the back of the player mat, you can see here, this is where you keep your specialist cards. This is where, when you do the I cut, you choose phase of the game, when you're grouping different things, you get to reserve one non-rare stamp right here in the reserve. No one else can choose that one. You are going to get that stamp. And then on the back of 3 of the mats, we have Automa solo mode stuff. So only 3 mats were needed for this. And so 3 of the mats are double-sided. The other 5 are not. There are 5 different themes in the game, so 5 different mats, 5 different players. You can also see that we chose a specific type of cardboard here that is sturdy but not too thick, because a board this big is very prone to warping. So this thicker cardboard, while sturdy, is not prone to warping as much. It's always going to lay flat on the table, and you already have these thick tiles on top of it as you play. So yeah, that's everything in Stamp Star. That's the evolution of the components. I can't really think of anything else offhand that is notable that changed over time as I'm looking through these components. But I'm really happy with how the game ended up. I like that we took the time to, in my opinion, to get it right. There was a lot of changes that we made after the PPC playtest, the pre-production copy playtest, to make sure that we got the game right. And yeah, this is the final version of the game of Stamp Swap from Paul Salomon, illustrator Conner Gillette, Stonemaier Games. This is launching on the Stonemaier Games web store on September 4th, 2024, in case you're watching this well in the future, and it will be available from retailers worldwide in English in late October, and also at Essen Spiel in 2024 as well in October. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions or comments about the things that I showed, or if you have any questions about things that we may have tweaked over the design, development, and production process. I'm happy to, in full transparency, answer those questions in the comments below. Thanks.